Today, I'm going to share how to survive in a capitalist paradise. You know, we live in, or I live in one of the most prosperous states, California, in these United States. And obviously, the United States are the world economic superpower at the moment. And so, more than that, it is one of the few economies in the world that effectively incorporated free market economy, and a lot of the people that live here reap the benefits of this system. And I got to say, I'm fully in favor of the free market. I think it's the best system that exists to date. I haven't seen anything better that was invented. And my background is that I immigrated from Eastern Europe, so I lived through the collapse, or I guess I lived through the results of the collapse of the Soviet Union. I was born in 1993. And I have a pretty good perspective about what the alternatives to the capitalist system look like. So that being said, why am I talking about capitalism and what prompted me to do this TED Talk? I think with all the benefits of capitalism, there are a lot of hidden dangers that lurk underneath the surface. One of the biggest ones is the identity of consumerism that this culture of capitalism promotes. So you might disagree and say, what are you talking about, identity of a consumer? And it's not me who's putting this label or this identity on most Americans. It is the news media. If you turn on CNBC or any major news network, you'll hear a lot of headlines like 20% of consumers now are increasing their savings account by so-and-so percent. And 30% of consumers are now choosing to opt out of buying a house or choosing to rent. But you don't hear to them referring to people as citizens, even though they used to back in the day, because the word citizen is a more loaded term. And the word citizen implies responsibility, civic duty. And the word consumer is almost insulting, honestly, and dehumanizing. And so, nevertheless, a lot of people don't recognize that there's a concerted effort or push to twist their identity into that of a consumer. Why is that a bad thing? Why can't I just become a consumer? I live in this capitalist paradise. Let me just enjoy the fruits of this system. Problem is the identity itself. The identity of a consumer is that of an insecure person who is running on a script of advertisers that manufacture or inflate pre-existing insecurities of that person for them to consume more. And this starts early in your life when you're a kid. You start comparing yourself to the other kids and what they're wearing in school and what store they bought it from and what kind of shoes they've got. And then as you mature, get older, this problem just increases. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. It snowballs because then people start comparing themselves on the level of education they got and whether or not they went to a prestigious school. What's an Ivy League education? And then it's what kind of job did you get? What kind of firm do you work for? And then it's, what kind of zip code do you live in? Were you able to buy a house? What is the square footage? And then it just escalates further and further. It gets into cars, watches, luxury goods, vacations. Later in life, it's the schools that your kids go to. And this endless cycle of consumption just continues. And you're being encouraged to play the part and to consume endlessly. Sometimes this consumption, not sometimes, I think most of the time, this consumption leads to over-leveraging where people go into debt just to appear the part, just to keep up with the Joneses. And they consume and consume endlessly until they get to a point of over-leveraging themselves where now they're working to service the interest on the debt that they incurred to live a lifestyle that would satisfy the observing neighbor, or to live a lifestyle that would hopefully resolve their insecurities. But there's no upper bound or upper limit on the consumption, right? You can consume more and more. It doesn't mean that you will feel like you've had enough, because there's always somebody who has more. And so it's really a spiritual issue. It's really a mental problem. It's not something you can resolve through consumption. Once you understand that, you can understand that there's almost a prerequisite or requirement for you to fight against this natural inclination to just compete in this rat race, keeping up with the Joneses and overly consume. The best way to start doing that is to start framing things in terms of time, right? Instead of looking at a decision as, well, we can finance this car, or we can finance this house, and we can afford it. Think about how much does this decision cost me in terms of time? How many waking hours will I have to work every month after taxes, after deductions, to be able to afford this thing? When you start framing it that way, you understand that every decision that you make financially has an implication. And that implication is your free time, your opportunity cost to spend that time in other ways. Otherwise, once you get all these commitments for 5 years, for 30-year mortgage, you're tied down to basically work every day or 5 days a week, or 6 days a week, to service the interest on that debt. And it's really sad to see a lot of people overextend themselves and get into the houses they can't afford, getting into the cars they can't afford, then really struggling to keep up, right? And then what happens is they get burnt out, they start using substances, marriages start to suffer, you see a 50% divorce rate. And it all stems from a very psychological problem that is easily fixable. Once you start reframing things and understanding that the system is set up for you to end up in that position with a mortgage you can't afford, with a car you can't afford, maybe with a wife you can't afford. That's a controversial take. People start taking vacations they can't afford to play the part, to make themselves feel adequate. Just ask yourself, what is the real cost of your freedom, of your ability to spend the time the way you want it? And yes, there'll be haters, there'll be people that maybe will point a finger. The reality is, there probably won't be, because nobody really cares about you as much as you care about yourself. Nobody's keeping tabs of your whereabouts. And if there are people like that, honestly, it's pretty sad, and they're pathetic in their own part. And so why would you even care about their opinion? So once you get freed from people pleasing, it will get you your time back. It will get you the freedom to spend your life in a way and spend your only limited resource, which is time. We all have a capped amount of time that we have on this earth. No matter your socioeconomic status, we're all limited in that regard. Beware, even in this capitalist paradise, there are forces lurking, trying to entrap you, trying to enslave you and take away your freedom. Don't fall for it. Stay vigilant. Stay alert. Don't be a people pleaser. Don't overspend. Don't overextend yourself. There's nothing to prove. Just come to terms with your insecurities and enjoy your freedom.